It's not great, but it's not abuse, right? Maybe he yells, but not all the time. Maybe he shuts down emotionally, but he says it's because he's overwhelmed. So if you're constantly second guessing yourself, but you still find yourself defending him when your friends raise their eyebrows, you need to hear this. Maybe there's a part of you that's kind of scared to just call it what it is, because I know like how big that word is, right? This word abuse. But we've been fed this idea that abuse has to look a certain way, right? It's screaming, it's hitting, it's cheating, she's terrified. Anything short of that, that's just toxic, right? Or worse, it's your attachment style. But here's the thing, abuse can actually be really subtle. And when you mistake it for something else, you stay. You stay longer, you try harder, you blame yourself. I'm Lisa Sonni, a toxic and abusive relationship expert. I'm an author of 4 books, including the Trauma Bond Recovery Journal. I have helped thousands of women get free from trauma bonds, even when they weren't sure what to call it when they were in it. If you've ever felt just confused and blamed or just frozen in a relationship that sometimes feels good and often feels like walking on eggshells, hit subscribe because this is what we do here. So first, I want to clear something up. Abuse, it's not just about pain, right? It's about power. And I don't mean yelling or slamming doors. I mean subtle power. The kind that kind of slowly teaches you that you need to doubt yourself. The kind that makes you small. You edit yourself. You apologize for things that aren't yours to apologize for. You plan your day around avoiding conflict. You feel anxious when he texts and worse when he doesn't. This isn't a fight. What I'm describing here, it's a dynamic. And in a toxic relationship, yeah, things can get messy, right? You can clash, you can hurt each other, but there's room for repair. There's some accountability. There's an attempt, even if it's imperfect, to do better. Abuse doesn't have that. Abuse doesn't want repair. It wants dominance, control, right? You need to be compliant and quiet and confused, and you need to be calling it love. So if every time you try to express hurt, you're met with things like silence and rage or blame or you're too sensitive, you're not in a communication mismatch. You're in a power imbalance. So let's break it down to make it really clear. Toxic, that's inconsiderate, but abuse is controlling. Now, toxic people avoid accountability. Abusers punish you for expecting it. Toxic conflict can get loud, but abusive conflict gets cruel and calculated or completely shut down, right? Toxic relationships can exhaust you, but abusive ones, they erase you. So if you're still not sure, let's go further. Toxic looks like, I'm sorry I hurt you, I wasn't thinking. And abusive looks like, you're overreacting. You always make a big deal out of nothing. Toxic might be, okay, that wasn't fair of me, I'll do better. And abusive looks like, you made me act like that. If you didn't do XYZ, then I wouldn't have done ABC. Now, here's the part that's actually really, really dangerous, okay? Abusers can also say, I'm sorry and I'll do better. That's what makes you think they're toxic, not abusive, right? Now, I want to say, side note, both are bad, okay? Toxic isn't better than abusive, but it's not really the words that matter. It's the follow through. A toxic person might fumble, right? They might trip up. They're still genuinely seeking change. But an abuser, they use I'm sorry to shut down the conversation. It's just like a little reset that they press so that you don't leave. It's not because they're changing, but because they're cornered. So how do you know the difference? Well, watch what they do after the apology. Do they seek support? Do they educate themselves? Do they try new behaviors? Or do they just expect the slate to be wiped clean? Right? I haven't been awful in a week. What's wrong with you? Things are fine right now. Because when someone says that they'll do better and then they don't, and in fact, then they blame you for expecting more, that's not immaturity. It's manipulation. But here's where it gets even trickier, okay? A lot of women get stuck in this loop. Like maybe it's just attachment stuff. Maybe he's avoidant. Maybe I'm anxious. Maybe we're triggering each other. The amount of times that I get asked if the person is just avoidant. What if he's just avoidant? Maybe he is avoidant, but here's the difference. Attachment styles cause discomfort. Abuse is damaging, right? Avoidant partners might get overwhelmed and need space. Yeah, is that annoying? Absolutely. Painful? Sure. Not abusive. Abuse is when somebody uses your needs against you. They punish you for showing any vulnerability. They weaponize silence. They're going to say things to hurt you on purpose, and then they're going to flip it around and they're going to say, you're overreacting. Avoidant isn't inherently abusive. Anxious isn't abusive. Disorganized isn't abusive. If he's calling you anxious to shut down every complaint you have, that's not just therapy language, right? Don't trust that. That's manipulation. Attachment styles explain reactions, but abuse creates confusion and it feeds off of it. Confusion is so much bigger than you think here. When you call abuse like just avoidant, it's one of the most dangerous traps there is. I actually have a whole other video on that called The Hidden Danger of Calling Abuse Avoidant, because the moment that you start to frame someone's cruelty as just some like nervous system quirk or some attachment style, you are literally halfway to blaming yourself for being hurt. Now, sometimes the relationship really did start as toxic, right? Two people with pain and poor communication and bad habits. But then one person starts learning what wounds you, right? What really like hurts you, and they're using it. But that's the shift when it turns from toxic to abusive. And how you actually know the difference, you look at the pattern, because toxic can be kind of reactive, but I find that abuse is really strategic. A toxic partner might lash out in the moment and then regret it, but an abusive one, they plan how to make you feel small, and then they say that you asked for it. Toxic relationships might have shouting matches. That could be abuse, it could be toxic, but abusive ones end with you apologizing for getting shouted at, right? Toxic partners can grow. Abusers use growth language, but it's only to just shut you right up. Now, if someone has just repeatedly shown you that your pain is a problem for them, and not because they care, but because they don't want to deal with it, you're not just clashing. You are being managed. That's abuse. And here's a really big one, if not truly the most important one. How do you feel in the relationship? Don't think about how he feels, what he says he feels, not what he promises, not the 2 days a month when things are calm and you actually get to believe in the potential again. How do you feel every day? Do you feel anxious, on edge, numb, exhausted, relief when he's nice? Relief, right? He's in a good mood. Things are okay right now. Do you feel like you're constantly just trying to get back to the version of him that shows up when he wants something from you? Do you think that you actually need to overthink every sentence before you say it just to avoid some kind of reaction from him? Because that's not attachment style clashes, right? He's conditioning you on not bringing up your issues. Now, the part that we don't talk about enough, your body already knows, right? People Google this all the time. Is it abuse if? All day long. Your nervous system has been screaming the answer for months and you're ignoring it. Toxic relationships kind of drain your energy, and I get that. But an abusive relationship, it's going to hijack your whole system. You may not be sleeping. You feel foggy, confused. Your digestive system is off. You might get headaches, all kinds of ailments and illnesses that you just can't explain. You feel addicted to him, but you also feel terrified of losing him at the same time. Right? That's not relationship anxiety. That is a clear sign of an unhealthy relationship. It's trauma. So it's not toxic, it's abuse. Now, trauma bonding makes you feel stuck and confused and frankly ashamed of yourself for missing somebody who is hurting you. And you're not trauma bonded in a toxic relationship, but you would be in an abusive one. Now, abuse doesn't always scream at you. That's a myth. Sometimes it whispers. It's so covert. It gaslights. It love bombs. It mirrors you until you are convinced that you found your soulmate, and then it just rips the carpet out from under you and it says that you've changed. And the longer you stay, the more you wonder, maybe it is you. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you do need to work on your triggers. Girl, if you're the only one working on the relationship, there's no relationship. There's just you doing emotional labor for two people while getting blamed for the mess that he created. But maybe you're thinking, I wasn't perfect either. I yelled, I begged, I said things I regret. And that's why we always think it's toxic, because you're reacting really badly to being abused. But like, what is a good reaction to being abused? You're going to say leaving, but Those that know, you can't just leave when you're in an abusive relationship. It takes planning and strategy and detachment. So of course you said bad things. You're being constantly invalidated, you're being dismissed, you're being degraded, screamed at, cheated on. Ooh, you react. How strange. Reacting to abuse is not the same as causing it. Survival's not pretty, right? You stay in these relationships, you're being pushed to the edge. That doesn't make you abusive. It makes you human. So stop confusing your worst moments in response to pain and abuse with being the problem. Now, finally, here's the part that I find that really keeps women the most stuck. He's not always like this. Sometimes he's sweet and he cuddles you like nothing ever happened. He pets your head. Sometimes he cries. He swears he wants to change. He says you're his everything. That's the hook. Abuse runs on cycles, not chaos. Predictable patterned cycles of idealization, devaluation, and then just enough affection to keep you hoping. If he were cruel all the time, you'd have left already. But the good moments don't mean that it's not abuse. They're how abuse works. A good moment after abuse isn't healing, it's bait. And actually, something that's really interesting too is there's a period of time where it's sort of the absence of abuse. So we always talk about like there's bad times and there's good times. And some people are like, there are no good times. The absence of abuse, so just sort of the nothingness, he's not being particularly awful, particularly cruel, those moments are the good times, sadly. They're only good in comparison to the bad. So you start to crave just silence. You start to crave just when he's not being particularly awful. Now, the truth is, I'm sure there's a ton of women watching this and they feel totally called out, maybe seen, maybe scared, maybe relieved. And to you, I would say, your relationship's probably not just toxic. But I want to tell you that you don't actually need a label to leave. You don't need a police report. You don't need a therapist note. You don't need a personality test result. You just need your gut, your instinct. And your gut is already talking. You wouldn't be watching this video if you didn't already know something was deeply off in your relationship. My Trauma Bond recovery course is built for exactly this moment, right? The women who are still in it, still unsure, or still haunted by what you could never figure out what was really going on. The Trauma Bond recovery course is for women who are in the relationship or out, but who are trauma bonded, healing from these abusive relationships. Over 3,300 women have taken it to break the cycle and rebuild their lives. So if you're ready to actually do that and own that, the link is in the description. And if this video gave you the clarity that you've been craving, I want you to leave a comment and subscribe and send it to a friend who might need it too, or people who need to understand what's really going on in your relationship. You're allowed to tell the truth.